Today we're talking about voice search in position 0 and a little bit about myself. I am the founder of Anvil Media. Back in 2000, I created what is now known as a measurable marketing agency. Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to leverage some of the insights the team has brought to the world of voice search and optimization for position 0. A little bit more context about me. I am an adjunct professor at Portland State around the same year, 2000, that I founded Anvil. I started teaching there, and I currently teach a search engine marketing workshop once a year. I also am the co-founder of pdxmindshare.com, an online career community organization. We post events and jobs, and we have monthly workshops. I'm giving the next workshop actually later this month, and you can check pdxmindshare.com for more information. SEMPDX.org, I co-founded in 2006 as a trade organization for those interested in the digital dark arts, particularly around search. And that is, we have our big annual event, Engage. The original predecessor, Search Fest, I co-founded back in 2005, and SEMPDX took that under their umbrella. And next Friday, we have Engage at Sentinel Hotel. I recommend checking out more information at sempdx.org. And if you want to check out more about our expertise and philosophy, I write regularly for iMedia and SmartBrief and Media Marketing Institute. We have a large articles compilation in our insights section of our website. So enough about me and about Anvil. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So for starters, I'm sorry, I'm seeing some people saying that there's a lot of noise, but there's no sound where I'm at. So if you're listening in, I assume that you're all muted. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about voice search, position 0, why it matters, how to optimize, and again, if you're on, this is not a broadcast, so please mute computers, hit the mute button. And if you don't, your phone is muted so we don't hear background noise and typing and the food. So we'll talk a little bit about the future and what it means and provide some resources, but let's get started. So a few statistics for you to keep in mind. Now, 2/3 of U.S. adults use the virtual assistants like Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, Bixby for Samsung, and also text-driven chatbots to get through their day-to-day life, managing their lives, buying products, etc. There are expected to be 56 million smart speakers sold this year, and that means that there's a lot of opportunity to interact as a brand and in terms of what we call v-commerce or voice commerce. And 21% of folks trust voice commerce with complex e-commerce tasks. So more than reordering more Tide Pods for your kids to eat, it's also about is that there are also opportunities to create more complex sales for a more wider variety of products. And of course, right now, a majority of that market is Amazon and Google smart speakers, which we'll talk about in a second. So down below, there's a little screenshot. Which of the following types of goods have you purchased using Alexa? Mostly electronics, probably a second or third smart speaker. Also home and kitchen, groceries, and other clothing as well. One more reminder for everybody to make sure you mute yourself. I'm not controlling the panel, so I can't see who's muted or not, but hopefully my team can do a mute all to make sure only I can be heard so you don't get a lot of the background noise. And again, I apologize. This is our second online Lunch and Learn, so we're still fine-tuning the WebEx capabilities with our new platform. So additionally, some visualization around what voice assistants are and appliances, smart speakers, and what they look like. On the right side, you've got your Google. Did you mute everybody else? Okay. So on the right side, lower right, you have the Google Smart Speaker, the Google Home, and their smaller mini speaker. I have a Google Home at home, and it's portable. It's a plug-in. I assume future will be wireless or cordless, but it has great sound quality. It's very smart. Sonos and other third parties are manufacturing speakers with Alexa or Google technology in them. Alexa on the lower left, you can see the Amazon Alexa technology is in half a dozen speakers, plus the Show, plus the Nest. It's all over the place and growing. If you have a phone, which a vast majority of adults do, they have Apple Siri, Samsung Bixby, or Microsoft Cortana as technology platforms, among others, for their vocal search, as we'll talk more about. Which brands, which platforms are marketers adopting or piloting the next year or so? Primarily Amazon Alexa, followed by Google, and then Apple. So Amazon, if you are a consumer brand selling through Amazon, it is a must-have to have a voice search strategy, if not intelligent agents or tasks or capabilities for the Amazon Alexa. For Google Assistant, it's all about optimizing your search results to be the only answer in Google, and we'll talk more about that in a second. And I expect to see a lot more Samsung Bixby growth outpacing Cortana in the next year or two, would be my guess. A few more stats to completely numb you before we get into the strategies and tactics. Nearly 2/3 of searches are now performed on a smart device. So, all right. So right now, according to Hitwise, there are a lot of searches performed on mobile devices, and a lot of that means search because people don't like to type with their thumbs or pinkies. 55% of teens, 41% of adults are using voice search more than once a day, and 82% are using search for mobile or local business, and 50% of mobile visitors who perform local search will visit a store within a day, 18% leading to a conversion. So ostensibly, we've got a lot of opportunity here ahead of us. When did you first start using smart commands? Last 6 months for the most part. So a few more stats, and I promise we'll move on. But right now, it's actually gone from 0 to 20 or 25% of searches are originating from voice back in 16. So see that known that that's grown to 30–40% this year. According to ComScore campaign, it's going to be half of all searches in the next 2 years. So bottom line is that there's going to be a lot of change. So ComScore, and then 22% of local content are searching for local content, so that last mile is important. 4,000 products have Alexa integrated, 1,500 have Google Assistant. So you can see that this is a huge issue, a huge opportunity. So what is voice search? Obviously, it's asking your assistant, a device or any device, a simple question. Google, Alexa, their goal is to provide you the best answer. Google uses their knowledge graph to do that. And most commonly, obviously, these are informational queries. Typically, a quick answer for the who, what, when, where, why, how, with a focus on the who, when, and how are most common searches. And what that means is there's an opportunity for you as a brand to provide an answer. So you can see in the chart below is that text input has a much longer tail. Voice input has a much longer tail than text. It peaks out at 3 to 4 words. And that means that you have a much bigger opportunity to own the tail, which in the terms of organic search is much harder to generate. So by definition, position 0 is the actual rich snippet or the visual element that appears in the Google search results as an answer box or an instant answer. It's above the organic results, and typically there are no paid results on search on queries that generate an answer box because they're very specific. Questions like, what is a rich snippet? So most often what you're getting is an opportunity to own the top position and also the secondary position in the top 10. Now, 80% of Google Home results come from these rich snippets. So here's an example of what is a rich snippet. So this is what it looks like. It is an actual, this is a screenshot of what is a rich snippet. So you have an answer, who provided the answer, UNAMO, and then additional related questions help people direct to other common questions that might generate a secondary instant answer or an answer box. So that's really what it looks like. So the opportunity is for you to own this box. There are a couple different formats: paragraphs, bulleted list, charts, tables, and occasionally embedded images. But the beauty is that on position 0, you're leveling the playing field because you can be a much smaller brand. As long as you rank in the first page for that phrase or question, you can rank in position 0. And then these people also ask questions or further insights into what to optimize for. And that's important. So let's talk a little bit more about the feature position for featured snippets for position 0. So the amount of featured snippets being used in Google results has gone up dramatically since 2015. This is only 15 through 16, and it's closer to 20% now, and or 30% according to a recent Stone Temple study. So there's again, other predictions say, half of searches will be voice. So I'm guessing even the amount of position 0 results will increase in that similar trend line. The average snippet is relatively short, 54 to 58, so under 60 words in length. So it's basically a long sentence or maybe 2 short sentences. That's it. And so you can see the growth through January 17th of the number of searches that generate a rich answer or a rich snippet. So some of the hot topics in position 0, you might want to ask yourself, where do I start? So one of the top 2 would be health and financial. In terms of those are the industries that have the greatest opportunity. In terms of applications of how to answer a question, most people are asking mathematical, time, or transitional questions topically. Those are very difficult to crack because they're finite answers that Google can provide within their current knowledge and knowledge graph. Other options, status, requirements, DIY, so do-it-yourself how-tos. There are some subjective queries like best reviews that are trending more than ever. But what you're going to try to avoid in your optimization efforts are more objective things like health facts, shopping images, and video that Google already dominates. So you can see in the chart below a visualization of all the queries asked. There are a certain percent that there are no responses for, and there are a certain amount that answer with the answer box. But some don't generate an answer box or have some other combination of responses. So you need to make sure that you understand which answers you want to go after. So we'll talk about that. Bottom line is you want to rank in the top 10. That's the catch. You cannot own a position 0 or voice search result unless you appear in the top 10 already and in organic listings. So in order to do that, you have to follow the best practices, and we have a clickable link when you get a copy of this to our white paper. The 3 C's I'm referring to are content, code, and credibility. So you need to have all 3 of those: great, relevant, unique content on your site. The code has to be clean and easily indexable, plus optimized for speed and keywords. And the credibility factor is all about who's linking to you and talking about your site. Once you can crack the top 10 for a specific question, then you can optimize and start to rank for position 0/voice search, right? So the end result is that you have 2 listings or 2 results in a given query, and that allows you to double up your presence and own the very top position. Only a third, roughly, of the top position, #1 ranking organic listing power the rich snippet. So there's a 66% chance you can get in as a lower ranking site in the top 10 with the featured snippet. So you can see it is a trailing effort. So you want to ideally be able to fold positions 1 through 3 or 1 through 5 in order to trigger the likelihood of owning position 0/voice search. So why does it matter? Basically what you need to know is that voice search in general is about 3 times more likely to be location-based. So if you're a retailer or local-based business, this is an important opportunity. They're 30 times more likely to be action-oriented. Position 0 rankings also generate a much higher click-through rate, far higher than the industry average. And it can just rank in position 0 can boost your organic listings by, in HubSpot's case, 114%. So they own the #1 position for a specific question about marketing automation, and the click-through rate on their organic listing below the position 0 was 114% higher once they appeared. And there's also a link to a case study where a company that optimized for position 0 saw a 516% increase in traffic. So that's massive, completely huge and game-changing, but not necessarily what you can expect. You can only hope for. So by comparison in the chart below, 26% of clicks typically go to the first URL. If you look at a listing or results page with a featured snippet, just under 10% go to the featured snippet, 19% go to the natural listing below the featured snippet, so the number 1 listing. Now, you just saw there's conflicting data here that some results increase the click-through rate organically. Others, there is some cannibalization according to this study by Ahrefs. So they get a higher click-through rate than other sections or lower rankings, but they may be at the cost of the number 1 position. So ideally, you want to be the number 1 position 0, but you also want to be maybe 3 through 5 organically so that you're not eroding your own top position. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. I'd still like to have both pole position in that regard. So the other consideration on voice search in position 0 is this concept that I mentioned earlier of v-commerce. So Amazon Echo will account for about $7 billion in voice transactions this year, according to Mizuho Bank. A third of internet users would like to make a purchase by voice-enabled speakers, and annual estimates for the value of owning a position 0 for a term like virtual desktop specifically, according to Stat Research, is about $2 million. So $2 million a year in value in terms of traffic and visibility based on just one high-end head term like virtual desktop. So if you're in the world of virtual desktop, you should start sharpening your pencils now and gunning for position 0. Now, the chart below just shows that very likely is 14, somewhat likely 19, so that's the 33% roughly of what is the likely to purchase v-commerce. And again, that was from July of last year. That's only going to increase probably incrementally versus exponentially over the next year or two. So what are some of the ranking strategies and tactics? I've hopefully convinced you not to ignore voice search in position 0, that it's important. There's high value there. So let's talk about how we can rank. So for starters, you want to begin looking at important modifiers. So modifiers around your core search terms. So for Anvil, it might be search engine marketing agency, but you want to figure out what are the modifiers from interest to intent. So what is a digital marketing agency? Who is a local digital marketing agency near me? How does a digital marketing agency price their services? When, and then you start to run out. So when people get to when and where, they're ready to act. So you need to be able to optimize for questions based on level of intent or action, which is really important. So that's the idea. And so understand where those questions fit within the sales cycle. And then as best you can, try to triangulate with conversations and surveys about them on how to conduct research, especially those suggested searches. So with that in mind, let's take a look at some of the tools you can use to actually to start this process from research to optimization. Now, on the integrated tools side, there are a couple key, and if you've been in the world of search for a long time, you would know that Moz is one of the grandfathers and granddaddies of SEO, and they typically they have a variety of tools, but they've integrated some of the voice search capability into their tools. There are a couple other secondary tools like Rank Ranger, Rank Tracker, Ubersuggest. These have integrated voice search results and optimization tools and tracking into their platforms. There's, of course, the free tools which can help in terms of Google AdWords, Keyword Planner, Search Console, and just Keyword Tool, which is what it's called. It's not a Google product, but those can be used to triangulate what kind of keywords and sentences or questions you should be asking. More topical tools to try and identify trends in terms of newer questions around your industry. FAQ for frequently asked questions, Fox, FAQ Fox, Storybase, Blog Search Engine, HubSpot, and Answer the Public are all great places to find new ideas. And in terms of ongoing tracking, SEMrush, Stat Search, and Search Metrics have tracking capabilities built in around voice search, similar to the integrated tools. But the integrated tools are great for the keyword research. The ongoing tracking tools are great for seeing how well you're progressing in the position 0 voice search onslaught, as it were. So there's a little really dully, hard to see, my apologies, screenshot of what one of those keyword research tools looks like that tracks position 0. You can check any of these or hyperlinks. When you get a copy of this deck, you can click through and check them out for yourself. So with that said, there we go. How to rank for the long tail. So it is worth mentioning that the long tail is a thing. So that is where you have phrases longer to typically 5 or more words or phrases constitute the tail, which is typically 70%, 60 to 70% of, for instance, Amazon's revenue is the tail, a majority of the revenue. So the idea is to look at those tail phrases. There's a couple of reasons to get very specific in your questions. Number one, it's less competitive. Number two, it's far more focused. So people are looking for something specific, which gives you a chance to actually get lower in the funnel where they're ready to buy. So you can see the stats in the bottom. 25% of web pages are visited. 70% of queries are long tail. They're 2.5 times more likely to convert. Some of the keywords that are triggered that you can look at in your keyword research: how, what, best. And interestingly, I've been trained for the last 20 plus years of doing SEO that you pull out terms like the, is, and so forth that are stop words. But in the world of questions, it's good to factor those in. So obviously, some of these are in context, some are not, but they're worth looking at as you look for inspiration and research phrases you want to own. So once you've identified ideal phrases, you want to figure out which ones then have a position 0. Do they actually trigger a position 0 result? If they don't, there's quite a bit more work, because you're not guaranteeing that just optimizing for it will trigger Google determining that it's worthy of a position 0 result. So you're better off starting with questions that are already answered with a position 0, and then reverse engineering the current result that owns the answer box and try to usurp them with a better answer to that question. So if not, then you have to work your way up to higher volume terms, and but are also at the same time longer tail, to try that are most likely for Google to trigger a new position 0 result that aren't currently there in the next year or so. And that also gives you a year to build a foundation so that once you do rank, that you're harder to knock out by your competitors once they see the opportunity. But make sure that you start with what you already have. So look at the site content using Google Analytics or your analytics platform to see what content is performing well and has great potential, and then cross-reference that with content that inherently does well with answering position 0. So as you look at position 0 answer boxes across your industry, you'll see what kind of content does well. Is it a blog post? Is it an article? Or more likely, is it an FAQ, or frequently asked question, or is it Q&A, very similar format? So you need to look at those as the potential, as a starting point. So for instance, we have an FAQ, we have articles, blogs, webinars, glossary of terms on our website. Some of that ranks relatively well, and very little of it have we optimized for position 0 yet, because this is a relatively new phenomenon, but we are working on that now for ourselves and for our clients. So how to rank, you need to select a format, basically. And what that means is you look at what format is most logical for Google to say, this is the one. So paragraphs are ideal for standard answers, most commonly used. So it's a sentence or 3. We talked about the average being under 60 words. Google generates a 41% higher rate of ordered lists in their featured snippet. So that is where there's a step, then another step, so they're dependent. So a recipe, how to change a tire, these are typically ordered lists. Tables and charts are ideal when you're communicating complex or comparative data. So complex, could be a concept, comparative could be which one or two or three things stack up well in a product side-by-side comparison. That's where you would have the chart. So you need to prepare that Google is going to like one format over the other and try and anticipate what that need is based on the context of the question. So the other important thing is you want to get to the point. So if you have a page that you think is ideal in FAQ, a Q&A page, or a really good blog post, you do want to make sure you optimize the page itself to address Google's specific needs. And there's a hierarchy starting with get to the point. I, of course, personally like that concept. Get right to the point. So in your first paragraph, you should be answering that question, or at the very top of the page in some fashion. Chart, ordered list, paragraph. And then lower in the page, second half, third, 2/3 of the page, you want to provide additional detail to back up your answer that you are indeed an expert worthy of position 0. So in a sense, you're following the hierarchy. Most newsworthy info, you answer the 5 W's or the H or the best or whatever it is, and provide more detail, and then additional more general information or links to more information to round it out. So start with the answer first, provide more context and more credibility, and then move on to additional information or conversion elements, calls to action. So how to rank? So in terms of the page optimization, there are basic fundamental SEO best practices, search engine optimization best practices. So you want to basically create that new content based on whatever rich snippet format is most important. But beyond that, you have to follow the best practices for optimizing the code. So the URL itself should have the relevant keywords that are appearing somewhere in that question. The title tag, which is the blue hyperlink in the search results and at the top of the browser window. The meta description, which is around now 300 characters, an opportunity to provide more detail around the question and the answer. Your header tags, which carry more weight than the rest of your copy. And of course, as appropriate, using schema markup, which is really what powers rich snippets. So telling Google, these are the elements, this is what they are, and this is why you should care. So basically, featured snippet URLs that included an exact match query to the tag appeared 21% more often than ones that did not. So follow those best practices. You can see what we recommend for title tag, character count, and meta description character counts. And we basically are saying optimize for Google because they're a vast majority of search results, and they're the ones that are generating for now position 0 voice search. So more advanced tactics to keep in mind. So right now you've got the Google Search Console click-through data, so you can map your keywords to see which ones have featured snippets or not. So again, you want to match what data you see in your click-through rate data in your Google Search Console, formerly Google Webmaster Tools, with the keywords which you have the featured snippets for to see what kind of insights you can gain there. And always make sure that you're utilizing the proof terms, which is a industry jargon that's basically around the keywords most relevant to the topic of the question at hand, need to be utilized more than once, so liberally throughout the page, but we're not keyword stuffing. This isn't 1998. Evaluate existing high-performing pages. Again, we mentioned that before. So do a deep dive into your analytics. See what pages and content is stickiest, driving the most traffic, generating the best conversions, lowest bounce rates. Those are a good place to start. And then also be sure to test. This is a very new thing. So test less common modifiers, terms like cost and buy and so forth, and see where those might take you. Google likes an 8th grade reading level for pretty much standard for a website. So make sure that you carry through on that. So don't dumb it down too much. And then you definitely want to optimize your lower funnel searches for the purchase. So think v-commerce. Can people order? Make it easy. And then to round it out, I would augment and support with a paid search campaign. So it's not common for ads to show up on position 0 searches because they're long, specific questions. It doesn't mean you can't buy them. You can buy any terms you want for the most part. So rounding out and owning a paid position could help with the conversion rates for sure. So you can see on the bottom a small chart, SEO trends for 2017 and beyond. Right now the pushes are in order: mobile, followed by quality content, followed by voice search. So that is absolutely, it's a top 3 priority for many bigger brands. No reason it can't be a priority for you. So let's talk a little bit about the future before we hopefully move to a bit of Q&A. So what does the future look like for voice search and position 0? So last year there were 25 million voice-first devices. Those were estimated to be shipped, which is up almost 2 million from the year from 2015. So that's a huge hockey stick curve. A 20x increase, 15x increase. I'm terrible at math. Only 30% of conversational interactions are actually successful. So when people are conducting voice searches, half the time that voice search is not generating the proper result, or it's basically failing, returning no information. So really, there's opportunity for radical improvement, despite the fact there's been a massive improvement from a failure rate of nearly 90% just a couple of years ago. And then the small percentage of voice skills that are out there today are branded. So particularly for Alexa, that's where you can create voice skills, and very few are there. An article that hit today that I tweeted out at Kent J. Lewis talks about how brands are being muted on or blocked more or less from Alexa, preferring Alexa to, Amazon preferring to have their own controls. Doesn't mean that won't change, but it does mean brands need to voice their opinion about voice and the ability to utilize skills to extend their brand and facilitate commerce. So voice first device footprint, again, nothing in 14, a little bit in 15, and all of a sudden 17 it blew up, and look for this year to increase, maybe not exponentially again, but certainly a massive increment, so 40, 50%, 50 million devices. So let's talk a little bit more about the commerce aspect. So expect to see more of the local results. So people looking for specific questions that are modified for a local audience. And then think transactional commerce. So when people are looking for something like buying movie tickets for tonight's, Black Panther, can we facilitate that, if we're Fandango? And then media formats like images and video that will become more and more prominent as Google loves multimedia. They're going to start incorporating more and more video in addition to the images they already incorporate into their search. So make sure to prepare a multimedia voice experience. So for instance, Amazon Echo Show will show you the visual results, not just give you the audio results. So that's important to factor in. Although it seems like the worst of both worlds compared to just using a computer in my mind, but we'll see how that evolves. More than half of regular smart speakers users want information on deals and promotions. So that's according to Google. So think about how you can utilize voice search to capture this magic moments, these prime time micro moments that people have looking for something and they're looking for deals. And if you can be one of the early adopters in voice, it would be highly advantageous. Consider creating voice apps or skills or other artificial intelligence related products driven by machine learning that get smarter and smarter. So for instance, 1 in 5 smart speaker owners use voice commerce to add an item to their cart. They could review it later, research an item they might want to purchase, reorder an item they've already purchased, or order a new product you've not previously purchased. So that is really, in my mind, the big opportunity from VoiceBot is that their research saying that 22% of voice search users would buy a product they're not even familiar with purely through voice, which is pretty phenomenal. So that shows a lot of opportunity, and of course, a third are just saying, well, I'll just drop it into my cart, just under a third. So look for all these numbers to increase in the next year. A couple of thoughts on advertising in voice. So I was quoting an article recently with Tech Republic about what the future of advertising on voice looks like. And right now, the ads are currently banned on Amazon Alexa skills with very few exceptions. There are no plans to add advertisements to Alexa for now, and I stress for now. I think that will change. Amazon does want to brand, they want brands to focus on developing skills that provide a more engaging experience, yet they're limiting access to those voice skills. So I think Alexa's going to have to walk their talk and be far more supportive of brands that are willing to invest early stage. Look for more advertising once install rates has reached 100 million. Right now, you're looking at 20 to 30 million today. So in the next probably 2 years. And companies can also monetize skills without advertising by offering paid subscription skills. So basically, creating a skill that's so valuable, people are willing to pay for it. So what that might be is, you know, we can certainly talk about it with you if you'd like, but I'm not going to give away too much of the milk. So this article in Tech Republic, you can see the title if you want to look it up. There are some other experts quoting the article that have some great things to say about what advertising might look like. But again, we're looking 1 to 2 years out at this point. No reason not to start evaluating, brainstorming, and testing. Maybe get an early stage beta if you're a bigger brand, and if not, just be ready to go when Alexa and Google adopt voice advertising options. And look for Google to probably do it first because that's their model versus Alexa, which is more about commerce and direct marketing. So we have a bunch of related materials. Some of this is our content. Some of it is content that I used as sources. So the first link is Online Marketing Institute, a very detailed article I used as a source for this deck. You'll see this presentation has some additional information and charts and graphs that have come up since I wrote that article in December. And then there's a 2-part article for Smart Brief, the next 2 links, the next link, and then there's, I'm sorry, I'm talking out of order. Second one is our blog post. Third one is the coverage that I mentioned. And then the rest is pretty much sources for the article, plus a couple of our other articles for bonus. So I didn't include the Smart Brief 2-piece articles because those are a subset of the first link, which is the Online Marketing Institute article. So that in a nutshell are the resources. Again, we'll get you a copy if you've RSVP'd. If you haven't, please send an email, kent@anvilmedia.com, and we'll get you a copy if you somehow joined without RSVPing first. So one little plug for our answer to this, because I like to give people answers, not just questions. And so the idea is that we have our own product that addresses the need for brands to get 0 to 60 in voice search very quickly. So we have our overall voice search optimization strategy. So we do the keyword research, we analyze position 0 for your industry, what the opportunities are, looking at the competitors, reverse engineering pages, identifying top content to optimize, and creating a map for new content, doing the keyword mapping and on-page optimization, and then we can offer optional ongoing monitoring and reporting, and that starts at about $2,500 at the low end for a smaller site, more focused effort for a smaller brand, and then goes up from there. So if you're interested, you can obviously drop us a line. So these are hyperlinked as well. Next steps, I encourage you, I promise you the next Lunch and Learn will not have these technology issues. We will make sure everything is working very smoothly next time around as we familiarize ourselves with the WebEx having moved from a different platform recently. We also have our Insights section, which is complete with white papers, ebooks, guides, articles, our blog, tons of content. We are archiving these Lunch and Learns as well. We have a monthly newsletter you're welcome to sign up for, or you can follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn to stay updated. And then we're always happy to offer you a free digital marketing audit of your online presence and provide recommendations on what you as a brand can do more effectively across our magic triangle of organic search, organic social, and paid media. So with that said, I am happy to answer any questions. If people want to throw down some chats, and I don't know if you want to help me moderate that. So go ahead and throw down some questions. Looks like we don't have any questions. Did you have a question? Not so much yet. Okay. So what I would say is make sure that you send us if you haven't already RSVP'd, send an email, kent@anvilmedia.com, and we'll get you a copy of the presentation as a part of the follow-up, as well as all the links that are embedded in that presentation. And then we will put a recording of this up on YouTube and a copy of this on SlideShare as well down the way. Look for our next Lunch and Learn is on podcasting. Did we lock down the date? So on March 28th, and we'll add a slide into this deck that we post. On March 28th, same time, same place, we're going to do a how to build your brand through audio via podcasting with one of our own internal talents and podcast experts, Taryn. So look for that at the end of the month, and you can RSVP for that probably starting tomorrow as we update the site with the new RSVP information. So we'll send you a teaser for that as well with the follow-up of a copy of this deck. I want to thank everybody for your time. You can always email me questions later if chat scares you in some fashion. Email, smoke signals, again, kemp@anvilmedia.com. And we look forward to seeing you next month at the end of the month for the podcast session. I want to thank you for your time, and we'll see you again soon.